that I will intertwine occasionally with mention of Mrs. Akinbo Sr. And I may apologize ahead on that. Some time ago at the Feast of Tabernacles, I visited the man. I actually do visit him periodically. But one of the times I visited him during the feast, 3 years ago specifically, I videoed a greeting from him, and I'm sure those of you at that feast will remember. You remember Mr. Okay? I sent a video of the man, and he was greeting everybody. We conducted his funeral. I went for his funeral and oversaw his funeral. I did the funeral service just in May. He was, I think, 83 years old when he died. I mentioned to you then that Mr. Oke was one of the most positive people I've met all my life. He was an old member of the Worldwide Church of God. And then when the Worldwide Church of God chose to embrace popularity over the truth, as happened to many people, he lost contact with the brethren. Sometimes being in an outlying area where you do not have access to others to fellowship with regularly, it could both be a strength or a weakness, depending on how the individual has positioned themselves or how they have aligned themselves with the tools that God has provided. Because God calls us, He says in the scriptures, here a little, there a little. Line upon line, line upon line. That's how He teaches us as well. And so, depending on our alignment with God, or how we understand our calling, being in an isolated area, or what we often refer to as scattered brethren, who do not have access to regular fellowship, can be an advantage or disadvantage. It could strengthen or it could weaken. But this man wasn't weakened, he was strengthened. Incidentally, by his examples, his wife, his children, eventually were asking if we will have a congregation in Ado-Ekiti. They definitely would love to fellowship with us. And they were eager. And they insisted I need to still keep in touch with them. And I have, and they've been keeping in touch as well. In fact, they've been asking me that I should give them directions. They want to come to my mom's funeral. Oftentimes, the eldest daughter of this man, who is roughly about almost 60, will call and ask for various information or need some advice or some counseling. She happens to be the wife of a pastor in deeper life, and she said one of the things she missed the most about her dad when he died was the way he could use the scriptures as examples to encourage her no matter the circumstances she faces. And when he explains the scriptures to her and brings out how principles in scripture can apply to how she relates in her house, with friends, with congregations where she is, in her responsibilities, it just makes sense. And she kept on wishing that they had more opportunity to understand and listen. Yes, I was growing up with them, I was explaining God's word to them. Why am I bringing this man up? Now when Mr. Oke lost contact with the church, he got in touch again with us in 2006, a year after I was ordained, through one of our own members again, another outlying member, Mr. Moradel. And I talked to him, he was excited to be in touch with the continuation of the Worldwide Church of God, United Church of God. And I told him I was going to visit him. Then he was living in Ado-Ekiti. I'm not that familiar with Ado-Ekiti or Edo State General around that time. Still not much. But my mom is from Ekiti State, and she's familiar with Ado, and she has relatives and people there in Kole, all those places. So I asked Mom, Mommy, there is this place that this man told me he lives in Ado-Ekiti. This is the address he gave me, and I don't really know, but I need to get to this man to visit him sometime around November when I go around visiting congregations and outline members. And Mommy said, okay, I should call him. She'll talk to him. Maybe if he describes it, she will know. She knew that place very well. So my mom, I called and she spoke to Mr. Oke. And he described, and Mommy said, oh, she knows the place. So I was looking forward to going there. And at the time when I got in touch with him was around October. And I was planning to visit in November. Between that time I think mom had something to do in the village. And Ijeluekiti, where my mom stays, to Aduekiti, it's like if you are in Lagos and you are here and somebody is living in Ikorodu, or you are in Lagos and somebody is living in Ekpe. So it's really a little bit of a distance. But it seems that when mommy went to the village that time, she actually branched to see this man. And of course they became good friends. So when we were going with Mr. Mickelson in November to visit Mr. Oke, mom went with us. And all the people we visited in Ado, Akure, during that period she was with us. And that sparked a friendship with the man. For those of you who know my mom, one of the subjects she likes talking about, which is a little bit unusual, frankly, the truth is that I'm not saying it because she's my mom. One of the subjects she likes talking about is talking about the kingdom of God, talking about salvation, about the knowledge of God. The truth also is she's sometimes so passionate about it that I've often felt she's a little bit too pushy with it. For those of you who know, she's so concerned and always eager to get someone to understand the truth. And it became a regular thing for mom. Anytime she's visiting, she will branch and visit this man. A year after, when the man's wife had stroke, my mom was also a regular visitor, and the wife also became a good friend and began to talk. 2-3 times in a year, mom would visit. But then that's typical of mommy, isn't it? She reached out to so many. She's someone who is very friendly, very outgoing, and that showed in a number of ways. There's someone here we all know who is not here with us right now. Clinton Kocha. I can say that now because he's not here. I observed some time ago, years ago, the moment Clinton started working in Lagos, I noticed the way he and mom relate. It was almost as if mommy had adopted him as a son. And technically, really, that's about how he is. Now, I work in the pharma industry for years, and I have contacts in that industry. 15 years there before I started on my own. Almost 28 years now, I've interacted with people in that industry. And Clinton was working in the same pharma industry. Mom doesn't fall sick beyond the regular, often ailments of old age, arthritis. Then occasionally, she might have her blood pressure go up. But she often needs to take drugs for that knee or her legs. She had a fracture on one of the legs years ago. And oftentimes, especially during the cold rainy period, it used to ache. And I noticed Clinton would bring drugs for her. I normally buy those drugs. And I get them at a serious discount from clients. But Clinton will send those drugs to mommy. And she'll tell me, it's my son that gave this to me. I was like, that's nice. And these are not cheap drugs. I noticed you also seem to have adopted Moses. Moses is also not here. Moses Wala. Another person that I also noticed easily was Ruth. And I noticed in Benin, at the feast, in Owerri, in Afabaja, in various places, mom is someone who interacts a lot with various people. And over the past 2 weeks, as I hear people call and people send in tributes, I could see there are quite a lot of tentacles that she has reached out. This may sound unrelated, but I will link everything as I go along. My mom was open and she was generous, sometimes almost to a fault. She will reach out to people. She will want to carry burdens and weight that are way beyond her frail shoulders. And because I was very, very close to her, oftentimes she will carry those weight and she will shift it onto my shoulders. There are times when I get almost exasperated. I'm like, Mommy, what is this? I don't need this trouble. You know, I have enough weight on my own. And she will say, look, so are you expecting me to see people having this body and I should just close my eyes? Eh? And if I choose to carry it, it's because I know your shoulder is big. Don't worry, God will make it big. When she says that, sometimes I will pretend I'm not happy at all. But deep down, because I'm frankly to some degree guilty of the same thing. She's somebody who does not let people solve their own problems on their own. She always has a word of encouragement. She has a word of advice for everyone. And so today I want to speak a little bit about that. What is the impact you and I are having on the people around us? When our time does come, and it will come, either before the coming of Christ or at the trumpet. But let's assume it comes before the coming of Christ. When our time comes, what are the tributes people will give concerning us? Or if you have the ability to know that my time is up, how confident will you and I be that we have touched lives? Because if we go through this life and the only life we have touched are those lives that directly connect to us, that is my own family alone, or those that I have certain advantage to get from them, then we'll have not lived the life as God expects us to live. The quality and the success of our life can be measured in the quality of the people we have influenced and how we have touched other people's life. I want us to read our first scripture from 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 9. The title of my message is this: There is a king in you. There is a king in you. And it needs someone to bring them out. There is a king in all of us. It needs someone to bring them out. 1 Peter 4:9 says, this is Paul admonishing us as Christians. He said, be hospitable to one another without grumbling. Be hospitable to one another without grumbling. People who are hospitable are those who open their doors to others. There are people who see others in need and they will reach out to alleviate that need, oftentimes beyond and above their ability to handle. People who don't put a cocoon of isolation around themselves. You know, I need to solve my own problems first. People who will, while trying to solve their own problems, will also notice other people with problems and seek to find a way to help them. People who will, in times that is not convenient, will open their homes, open their heart, open themselves and their resources to others so that they can have a smile on their face, and that relieves their own problem. Let's turn to Revelation chapter 12. Actually Romans chapter 12. Romans chapter 12 from verse 9. This was Paul's instructions to the Romans when he was encouraging them to behave as those who are children of God, those who are called of God, those who are Christians, to be Christ-like. Romans chapter 12. I'm going to start from verse 9. Romans 12 from verse 9. If you have a Bible with a title, even though it's written, the title is written by man, the title from this section of Romans 12 will be behave like a Christian or behave like a child of God. And this is how it starts. Romans 9. Let love be without hypocrisy, pretension. Okay, you see someone and you look at them as if you like them. You smile at them. You look them in the eye and you talk to them as if they are friends. And yet, inside or behind them, we will snigger, or we will snicker, or we will just turn our noses at them. It says, let love be without hypocrisy. Hate what is evil, cling to what is good. Verse 10, be kindly affectionate to one another with brotherly love, in honor, giving preference to one another, not lagging in diligence, fervent in spirit, serving the Lord, rejoicing in hope, patient in tribulation, continuing steadfastly in prayer, distributing to the needs of the saints, and given to hospitality. I find it interesting that if you look at all these qualities here, there are more emphasis, or there are more qualities that has to do with what we do for others rather than what we do for God. Because when we do for others, we really are doing for God. I'm not going to turn there, but what remember is in Matthew 25, when Christ was talking about those who have shown hospitality or affection or kindness or goodness to some of his own. He said, I was in prison. He said, I came to visit. He said, I was sick and you gave me clothes. I was naked and you gave me clothes. I was hungry and you fed me. He was talking about all those things. And he said, you have done all these things to me if you have done it to anyone of my own. Over here, when we look at from verse 9 to verse 13, frankly, the entire rest of this chapter 12, there are more information there concerning characteristics of doing things for others. God expects us to be those people who touch the lives around us. And that is very, very important. Throughout the course of our lives, we often go through various difficulties, troubling times. And some of those times we wonder whether it's worth it. Sometimes we just want to quit. Sometimes it's just like want to just call up and just die. Or just give up and just walk away from everything. It is at those times, frankly, that the value of God having put us in contact with one another should come into place. If all of us do not try to exemplify this attitude of being open to hospitality, kindly affectionate to one another, showing brotherly love to one another, being able to see others and esteem them better than ourselves, and looking out to the needs of others and not just our own, how can we then be able to exemplify this trait of us being able to be our brother's keeper? How can we be able to support one another? How can we be able to carry one another's burden, as the scripture says? I'm going to use an example to buttress the value of us being people who are outgoing, people who are friendly, people who will inconvenience themselves for others, people who will notice others and reach out to try and put a smile on their face. Because all of us have a king in us. And while yes, God has called us and God is working with us, He has still placed us in a physical body. The Bible calls the church our mother. And we know the job and the functions of mothers, right? They nurture, they care, they encourage, they promote peace and love and unity. And they're the ones who take care. And that is you and I. We constitute the church. We constitute the church of God, the ecclesia of God. And if we do not learn to exemplify this attitude of reaching out to others, of noticing others, and doing something to bring a smile to their face, carrying one another's burden, we are not learning the lessons for which God has placed us in fellowship with one another. I link this, of course, to my mom, simply because it's so close to when we're going to do a burial. And I'm saying this because, honestly, sometimes we need examples. And God has placed you in my life to be an example, has placed me in your life to be an example. And all of us are supposed to be an example. And for me, one of the things I learned that I exemplify, because in growing up, I always tell myself, I'm learning how to treat my brothers and my sisters. And I'm learning how not to treat my brothers and my sisters. I'm learning how to treat my wife. And I'm learning how not to treat my wife. I'm learning how to be a good friend. And I'm learning how to not be a good friend. In all the experiences we go through, we need to see what God is teaching us. And from my mom, I learned how to be open and hospitable. I remember when visitors would visit us in the Jebu, and things were not all that easy. And mom will ask us to cook. I cooked for the family till I was about 17. And then when I make the dish and I'm dishing it out, and our house oftentimes is like a garage. I mean, somebody would just come today, just arrive with a bag. And by the time you're asking, so where are you from? Oh, say my mother and the senior brother of the uncle of your mother's second, third brother are from the same father's mother. And the person has come to stay. Before you know, somebody else will come and they'll tell you how all the lineage link. See, the brother of my mother and the second brother of the mother's father's sister and my so and so. And mom will take everybody in. And when we're dishing out food, especially to people who are visiting us for the first time, and I'm looking at what they can eat reasonably, that will not be a waste. Mom will say, put more food. See, that's what that is how they were raised up. So put more food. Do they come here every day? Let's not give them something. Look at it. They won't come here as much. So put the food there. Of course, it is us that will have to eat less. When mom is in need and she sees someone who is also in need, she will still be soliciting and worrying and trying to use the resources she has to try and deal with that of the other person who is in need. And this hasn't come out to me as a surprise. It's a quality I've always admired. And over the past week, as people will call, various people will tell me specifics and individual ways in which my mom has related to them, and from all walks of life, covering various cultures, Ghanaians, people from the eastern states, people from the northern states, people from the south, and they will mention specifics. These aren't surprising to me, beyond the fact that I wasn't aware of those events largely to an extent. And I realized that, we are all supposed to be examples to one another. And the story of Samuel and Saul, who later became Paul, buttress the fact that God expects us to be those who reach out to one another. He doesn't expect us, this is how I am. I don't think that statement should come from the mouth of a Christian. We should be saying this is how Christ is. That is how I'm supposed to be. Do I have a right to be conservative? I believe so, yes. But do I have a right to be conservative with my brethren? No, I don't. Paul said, be imitators of me as I am of Christ. He said that we should aim to achieve the stature of the nature of the fullness of Christ. That is why God has put various one of us in the congregation, in the church, that we can all work towards being like God. There's nothing to be me, I don't like people. Me, I like my privacy. Me, I don't like to interact with people. That is out of the window. God didn't call us to be like ourselves. He called us to be like His Son. And His Son, He reached out. He is compassionate. He is concerned about others. And that's how God wants us all to be. Let's turn to 1 Samuel chapter 16 and quickly get into the story proper. The story here is about the beginning of the life of David. Saul had been anointed the king of Israel, and he had become a little proud and ascribed to himself what has not been ascribed to him. And so God was not happy with him, and God needed to replace him. And so God told Samuel to go, that he has found a man after his heart, someone with a humble heart. He's a great person, he's a warrior, but he's also a very humble person, and his heart is right with him. So God sends Samuel to the house of Jesse. From verse 1, 1 Samuel 16, from verse 1. The Lord said to Samuel, how long will you mourn or grieve for Saul, seeing as I have rejected him from reigning over Israel? My friend, fill your horn with oil. Okay, my friend is not there. I am sending you to Jesse, the Bethlehemite, for I have provided myself a king among his sons. So God told him, Samuel, stop grieving about this guy Saul. I got me a new guy, and I want you to go anoint him. And Samuel said, how can I go? If Saul hears it, he will kill me. Again, doesn't negate the fact that being a prophet of God, sometimes when you read this, you see the humility in these men of God. Is it not? The humility in them. We might look at it and think this is lack of faith. No. They simply don't think because God used them, because God works with them, that makes them supermen. That makes them what? Invincible. They still recognize that God is the one who chooses what He will do when He will do. And they never overblow their own importance or their own value. And God told him, take a heifer with you and say, I have come to sacrifice to the Lord. Then invite Jesse to the sacrifice, and I will show you what you shall do. You shall anoint for me the one I name to you. Now, God could have told him, don't worry, go. If Saul tries it, I will send thunder from heaven to destroy him. God said, don't worry. Just say you are going there to do what? To make a sacrifice. It has to be one of the either monthly feasts that they do or the annual festivals. So Samuel did what the Lord said, and he went to Bethlehem. And look at this, and the elders of the town trembled at his coming. They were afraid. And they said, do you come peaceably? And he said, of course, peaceably. I have come to sacrifice to the Lord. Sanctify yourself or prepare yourself and come with me to the sacrifice. So it's not just Jesse and his family. It was all the elders of the town of Bethlehem. And they will all come to where Samuel wants to do sacrifice. So he consecrated Jesse and his sons, and he also invited them to that sacrifice. So it's a large crowd, a large gathering. Just picture it. Now, when the children of Israel, of Bethlehem, gathered, the sons of Jesse came. Let's continue from verse 6. So it was, when they came in, he looked at Eliab and said, wow, this guy is built like Paul. This guy obviously has to be the anointed one. I thought it said he's built like Paul. He looked at Eliab and said, surely the Lord's anointed is before him. He has to be a fine specimen of a man. Tall, handsome, probably has mustache like Shehu or something like that. And the Lord said to Samuel, do not look at that, at his appearance or at his physical stature, because I have refused him. No, that is not the one that's going to be the king. For the Lord does not see as man sees. Man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. And then Jesse called Abinadab, made him pass before Samuel, and he said, not this one too. God has chosen this one. Then Jesse made Shammah pass by, and he said, not this one too. And one by one, seven of his sons passed before Samuel. And Samuel said to Jesse, in verse 10, the Lord has not chosen these ones. Take it like this. The firstborn came. Nope. Second one came. Nope. Now picture it if I'm here. And I said, Mr. So and so, let your sons walk before me. God has chosen one of them for me to anoint him. And everybody knows what the anointing means, right? And the firstborn came. Wow, this is a great opportunity for my papa or for my family and for me. And Samuel said to him, no, God didn't choose you. Come to the side. And then the second one too will come and say, nope. The third one, fourth one, fifth one, sixth one, seventh one, and none of them were chosen. What's interesting is that David was small, considered insignificant. Nobody thought that anything good can come from him. Or maybe the father didn't think he could, but at least that kind of good. Obviously, he would love David, his son. But he didn't think he was good enough for that kind of opportunity. There couldn't be a king in that young guy. I mean, not him, but then look at these fine specimens. I mean, look at this, my brave, tall, handsome, muscular son. This will make good kings. But David, nah, maybe he's a little bit of a ruffian, too playful, too whatever. Jesse didn't think there was a king in David. He didn't think there was a king in him. And he did not bring him. Verse 11. And Samuel said to Jesse, are all the young men here? There remains here the youngest. And there he is, keeping the sheep, probably some distance away. They didn't think it was important enough for him to be there. When they said, bring all your sons, God has chosen one of them to be king. They didn't think David had what was in him to be a king. And Samuel said, send and bring him. We will not sit down till he comes here. Again, nobody should sit down, everybody stand up. none of these are your own children. They will all have been wondering, this man doesn't have any children anywhere except us. It definitely cannot be David, not little David. So he sends and brought him in. The Bible says he was ruddy. Ruddy means he's actually healthy. He looks healthy because he's an outdoors person. He said with bright eyes, good looking as well. And the Lord said, arise, anoint him, for this is the one. Okay, why did God choose David? The Bible says he has a heart that was like him. We know inklings of that if we go through the life of David. When he was to face Goliath, he didn't go with bombast to tell you, this Goliath, you don't know how expert I am with a sling. I will deal with you. He said, you come at me with a spear. I don't come at you with spear and javelin. I'm coming at you with the name of the living God of Israel. He said, I'm coming at you, not because you have power, I have power, but I'm dealing with you in the name of the living God of Israel. He had his hope, his faith in God. And yet, he was humble. He said God delivered him. He didn't say, oh king, when he was talking to Saul. I'm a brave person, don't play with me, I may look small like this, but something inside me is huge. I'm a powerful person. In fact, one time when I was carrying sheep, looking after my father's sheep, one bear came like this, I destroyed it. I just used it for lunch. Another lion came, I just destroyed it. I'm strong. He was humble. See, his heart recognized that nothing he is, nothing he did, nothing he ever accomplished was by himself. He ascribed everything to God. It's the beginning of the heart that all of us should have. That kind of heart is what God said is a heart after his own heart. That was why God chose him. But I also believe something else helped David. Even though David was just a young boy, an ordinary Joe, so to say, an ordinary person, but inside of him he had the heart of a king. Today, as I said, I want to speak on the fact that there is a king in you, in us, and it needs someone to bring it out. And you can be that someone to someone else, and someone can be that person to you. We all need to be those who reach out. We need to be able to lay down ourselves for others. We need to not delude ourselves with our what? I'm a private person. I'm a conservative person. No, we need to step out and be like God. We need to step out and reach out to people. God wants us to be social people, frankly, because he himself is a social being. He doesn't need us, but he created us so he could share his nature with us. That is who God is. Now, it is David's heart that made God choose him, and it was God who chose him. And he wasn't even looked at as a candidate, but he became the greatest king in the history of Israel. They call the 50 years he was king Israel's golden years, the greatest in the history of Israel till today. Even the Bible says he will still be the king over Israel when Christ comes. Now, when David came out, verse 12, he sent and brought him in, and he was ruddy with bright eyes and good looking. And the Lord said, arise, anoint him, for this is the one. Samuel took the horn of oil. Remember that the elders of Bethlehem were all gathered. His dad was there. Probably his mom. His brothers were there. And his brothers have been called, and they have had this word. Nope. 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 And then David was anointed. Now, 7 of them couldn't be king. Obviously, one had to still be the king. Everybody knew that. But is it possible? Is it possible that the brothers themselves could have been affected by being rejected so openly? You think it's possible? You think it could have affected their mental view of themselves? To be rejected by God for a kingship or something vital so openly in the presence of so many. Maybe the Bible didn't say, The only other mention of those brothers was when David wanted to fight Goliath, isn't it? They were in the army and they were soldiers. And they were afraid to fight. A couple of them were making fun of David, even angry at David when he said he was going to fight Goliath. The anger may have been one that's born out of a little bit of some brotherly jealousy. Look at this situation. You think because they anointed you and said you're going to be king of Israel, you think therefore you can fight Goliath? My friend, get out of here. Maybe it's because of that. But here's one thing I want us to look at in verse 13. Samuel took the horn and anointed him in the midst of the brothers, and the Spirit of the Lord came upon David from that day forward. This simple statement belies a lot. It also belies a lot. When Samuel anointed David, I am sure he must have told David why he was anointing him, isn't it? He will have talked to him. I'm sure he will have encouraged him. He may have cautioned him concerning falling into the same trap that Saul fell into. He will have encouraged him and spoken into him. And the little boy David, the ruddy, jovial, friendly, playful David, will have a little bit of some steel and some focus in his life. That I have been chosen for greatness. And I need to rise up to that challenge. Maybe that single instance was also what encouraged him to be able to go and face Goliath. Maybe. Our heart is important. God wants our hearts to be like His own. But God will use individuals to often strengthen that heart. A time came when David was having problems with Saul. And Saul was going to kill him. David could have been discouraged. But do you know who spoke into his life and encouraged him and strengthened him? Jonathan. We know who Jonathan was. Saul's son. The one who is supposed to actually inherit the kingdom from his father. I want us to turn to the book of 1 Samuel, chapter 23. 1 Samuel 23, verse 15. I believe what Samuel told David when he anointed him continued to inspire David in the actions he was taking to recognize that God has appointed him or anointed him for something great. And he will not give up when he faces difficulties. And at the point when he will have, look at what Jonathan did. David saw that Saul had come to seek out his life. But let me tell you a little bit of, build this up a bit. Now, when they were facing Goliath, all the soldiers were afraid. The strongest people in that army will have been, or the bravest at that point will have been Saul and Jonathan. We know Jonathan was brave, right? Remember the time when he took his armor bearer and he went ahead to go and attack the enemy camp. Now look, if the Lord is with us, fine, and if it's not, well, so be it. So it wasn't a weak person. Jonathan probably was going to be willing to fight Goliath. But I bet Saul would not have allowed him to. Saul was king, and his soldiers would not have allowed him to. But he himself was afraid. And then David came along. Maybe before David came, maybe Jonathan was the hero, the favorite of the people, the man of the hour. Because obviously when Saul wanted to kill him for having eaten, after he said nobody will eat until evening, I'm sure we are familiar with the story I'm talking about. The soldiers came together and said, no, you will not kill this guy. You don't know what God did through him. So he was a man of the hour. And now David went and killed Goliath. And they were singing about David, and that was the start of his problem with Saul. Saul has killed his thousands. David has killed his 10,000s. And Saul got jealous and he tried to kill David. Now, for David having been anointed king, obviously Jonathan knew his position as the heir apparent was already out of the way. He was out of the way. But look at the hearts of Jonathan. David saw that Saul had come out to seek his life. And David was in the wilderness of Ziph in the forest. Then Jonathan, Saul's son, arose and went to David in the woods. And look at what he says he did. He strengthened his hand in God. What if David had gotten discouraged that time? What if he was wondering, this can't be happening. I thought God had told me this was what. Samuel spoke into my life that God has asked him to anoint me to be the next king of Israel. And then look at all these things happening around me. I don't see how this can be anything good. And Jonathan strengthened his hand. He saw him in need. It's not Jonathan's problem, really. Frankly, that problem is solved in the way that Saul wanted. It will be to Jonathan's advantage. But Jonathan recognized how David was feeling at that point. I believe he recognized how he may be discouraged. And he went to him and strengthened him in God. God wants all of us to be Jonathans to one another. God wants us all to see ourselves in need. And you cannot see someone in need if you are not attentive and close, and patient, and actually willing to notice them. Let us be people who do not just sit by ourselves, but people who reach out to others. People who turn to be Jonathan and they can help bring out the king in us. Verse 17, Jonathan said to him, "Do not fear, for the hand of Saul, my father, shall not find you." Is this not the kind of person we want as friends? People who will stand with us and encourage us, no matter what, even if it costs them personally. That is the kind of person we should be. That is the kind of thing that brings out the king in others. People who are ready to give up, and yet what God has sown in their life. Because everyone that has been called by God, the scripture says in 1 Peter 2:9, says they are a royal priesthood. God has put greatness in all of us, and He wants all of us to help one another to bring it up. We will face challenges. We will have challenges. We will have inconveniences. We will have heartbreaks. We will have betrayals. We will have insults. We will have things happen to us to discourage us. But I hope that we will have people around us who have made themselves into Jonathans and who will come to us and they will encourage us and bring out potential that is in us that we may not even see or the others may not see, and will be the kind of people that God wants us to be. He said, "You shall be king over Israel, and I shall be next to you." I pray God gives me, all of us, a heart to be a Jonathan to those around us. So look out for their good and for their interest, even at our own expense, and to do it and practice this without grumbling. We know who Saul, the apostle, was. Zealous for the traditions of the Pharisees, persecuting the saints. He had a letter to go arrest them and put them in prison. When Stephen was being killed, it was the hanger that they gave him all their clothes, their coats, while they stoned Stephen to death. But we also know that Saul was the greatest of the apostles. He wrote 2/3 of the scripture. He was the apostles to the Gentiles. He stood before kings. God used Paul mightily, way more than all the other apostles, even the 12, beyond John, who are with Christ. How come? Yes, God used what He had in Him, all right? But someone brought out that greatness, or God used someone to bring that greatness out. We know who that was, right? Acts chapter 9. Let's turn there. Acts chapter 9. After Saul had his Damascus experience, he became blind. And he went to Ananias. And he became sighted again. He said, when Saul had come to Jerusalem, Saul, the one who was the killer of the brethren, the arrester of the brethren, the persecutor of the brethren, the fiery Saul, who stood by and supported the stoning of Stephen, first martyr, he tried to join the disciples. They were all afraid of him. How many times do you see someone who's made a mistake in the past, or who's made mistakes in the past, and is trying to get himself back or herself back, and all people could see was that person's mistake? Ah, it's not that person. Ah, that thing that did this one. And all people could notice was the person's mistakes. They could only see the person's past. And nobody was going to give that person a chance. You know, that could kill the potential in someone, isn't it? That could discourage someone so much that they just slide back into where they're coming from. You know, what's the use? Nobody even cared. They didn't want to give me a chance. But what if some of us, or better still, all of us, have made ourselves into a friend like Jonathan? And we strengthen those kind of people in God. Reaching out to them, working with them, encouraging them, even at our own expense, even if it's to our own ridicule. Wouldn't we bring out the potential that was in them when God called them? Because yes, God sees something in all of us before He calls us. He sees something in us, that's why He called us. But yes, while that Spirit of God that He has given us to be in and to be with us is there as power to work with us, God also knows we need one another to speak encouragement to one another's life. That's why Paul encouraged Hebrews 10, 24-25, that do not neglect the fellowship of one another, as some are in the habit of doing. Say, but let us do it all the more so. In fact, it started by saying we should look for ways to inspire one another to love and to good works. We need to be people who reach out to one another. We need to not be conservative in our relationship with one another. We need to reach out, touch lives, influence one another, notice one another, and encourage one another to bring out the King in us. We all have greatness in us. Nobody is useless. Nobody is without abilities. Nobody is without talent. Even in the parable of the talents, at least someone had one talent. There was no one there who had no talent. We all have abilities, and we need to be people who will bring out those abilities within us. There is greatness in all of us, and we need to be people who will bring that greatness out. There's a King in all of us. And then verse 27. Everyone says they were all afraid of him, and they don't believe that I was a disciple. Verse 26. 27 says, but Barnabas. Barnabas. The meaning of Barnabas is the son of encouragement, or an encourager. But Barnabas took him, brought him to the apostles, and he declared, that word, Greek, connotes, he spoke strongly. He argued like an advocate, like a lawyer. I bet if Akim or Ronke had stood to argue his case, they could not argue better than Barnabas. They didn't have enough degree to do that. He took him, brought him to the apostle, and he declared to them how he had seen the Lord on the road, and that he had spoken to him, and how he had preached boldly at Damascus in the name of Jesus. He gave him what? A word of encouragement that enabled Paul to fulfill the potential that God saw in him and wanted to use him for. How could Paul have been such an effective encourager to the brethren? How could he have been such an effective minister to the people if they were afraid of him and they would not listen to him? Even though he was called by God, even though God has called him and given him his spirit and was giving him a commission, if the people did not accept him, how could he have achieved the potential of being a great apostle? But someone who was not even used as much as God used Paul was one who reached out a hand to him. First, he must have encouraged Paul, I believe, and convinced him to not give up. I said, don't worry, just don't worry, let's just go. I remember a time, sometimes, maybe when I was in UI, and there was a lady that had an issue. She came to the house and she was pleading with me. And I told her, look, I don't like seeing you do this. I don't like seeing you like this, okay? Really. But look, you made a choice. You crossed the line. And it's done, it's gone. I'm sorry, I cannot come back here again. And I went out. And then I forgot something, I was come back to the house. Then I had my mom say, don't worry, relax, just beg him, just keep begging him. Keep begging him, you are said, just keep begging him. I can't tell you the number of times when my mom had done that. One time, a friend of mine, one of my closest friends then, is a deaf guy, first deaf pharmacist in Nigeria. I learned sign language because of him then. And he had his fiancée, and I think they had a quarrel. Those who know my mom well, we know how mom will always jump in to try and solve a problem. If there's somebody having a problem with someone, she just wants, I don't know. She just wants to be a peacemaker. This lady came to the house and she was in tears. She was crying very early in the morning. I was shocked. I was afraid something had happened to my friend. So I was asking her what happened. What happened? Why are you crying like that? And she started explaining to me what the problem was. And mommy came and said, hey, tell me what's happening to her. Mommy just came and said, oh, yeah, come, tell me what happened. She was not asking questions. I was explaining to her what was happening. When mommy had that, she had a problem with the fiancé. And the fiancé said, I don't do it again. Bye-bye. Mom said, no, it's not possible. People offend each other, but they must forgive each other. She started to, no. This person must agree. They have to settle. It's the nature of mom. She's always going to step in there and always wants, she doesn't want to hear, you know what, this is person that first said, she first of all said, look, first of all, we need to settle this. Then we can look at how we can resolve, differences. This thing, we need to settle this. It is one of the things she's known for. And frankly, it's one of the things we should also be known for. We need to be people who reach out to others and help bring out the best in them. If we're not growing in that ability, if we're not actively, consciously grooming ourselves to grow in that ability, I believe we are missing one of the reasons why God has put us together in the body of Christ. Barnabas built Saul up. He built him up, encouraged him, and Paul was able to achieve the potential that God had called him for. He brought out more or less to say, he brought out the king in him. Jonathan did the same for David. He was with David, encouraged him, supported him all through the troubles and problems he was having. He never once thought about what he was losing. Brethren, as God's children, brothers and sisters, friends, we need to understand the power of encouragement. We need to understand the power of fellowship, the power of reaching out to one another. The truth is that if not for my mom's actions, she was the one who would call Mr. Oke's children. She was the one who gave me their phone numbers years ago. Daddy, you should call Shala, Mr. Omodadi Oke. Call him. Call her. I've spoken to her. She doesn't understand many things. It's not good. Dad is not happy that the children are not there with him. They don't understand anything. But I was speaking to her, and she said, hey, Daddy didn't explain that so well that time. Or that. But I should call her. I can explain better to her. You should call Tokman. You should call this person. She gave them all my number and gave me their numbers and encouraged me to call them. It was because of Mom that I had connections with them, because they do not live with him. He lived only with his wife and the youngest daughter, who had a son that was taking care of them. But all the others, the adults, those in their late 40s, early 40s, and their 50s, it was true Mom that knew them. And incidentally, Mom's relationship with them wasn't just casual. Mom visited the first daughter in their house, visited the second son in their house, all within that estate. She took it upon us to just visit them, and she knew them personally. I don't think a week or two goes by that Mr. Oke's children will not send me a message and will not exchange text messages. Over the past year and a half, it's almost every day now since we went for the burial. In fact, they are still saying that if we can gather together, the people who are members of the church in Ado or those who are subscribers, if you can get a fellowship there, they really want to be at the church. I believe God used Mom in that regard. But of course, obviously, it was because she was willing to be a conduit. She was willing to be someone who reached out to her. And I think we need to learn to do that as well. The words that we speak to one another, our noticing one another's weaknesses, or someone said something in one of the tributes said to my mom. He said, if you have a problem and you're trying to hide it, she said she will notice and she will call you. She said she will say, come, my son, what is wrong with you? He said, is there any problem? And when he doesn't really want to just burden her with, he said, okay, you know what, don't worry. If you can't tell me, go and tell your brother. Go and tell Daddy. Go and tell Daddy. So that's how she used to talk to me. And he mentioned specific areas, some problems there that incidentally I was aware of, that I also was working with some of them. He said some of those things, it was Mom, he would say, look, go and tell this person. You know, go and meet this person. This person can make this person. And I would say at least, when I think about her life, and I think about all she went through, and her struggles, these disappointments, the joys, and everything like that, I would say she has indeed fought the good fight, and has run the good race. And I believe there's a crown of life that is prepared waiting for her. Brethren, in all of us there is a king. There is greatness, there is potential. And it needs someone to bring it out. To put someone on the spot. See, Oludare, you are seen here. When Oludare first started coming around, it looked like if you take ice cream, open his mouth, and put the ice cream there, he closes his mouth. Come back after a week, open his mouth, the ice cream will still be there. It looks as if that's how cold he is. How quiet he is. Oludare will set this up. Oludare will walk with those guys who are there. But that was not how Oludare was when he first came. Almost quiet to a fault. But I bet he has interacted with people. As people related with him, what was in him started coming out. And I started seeing, especially as opportunity presented itself on the UCG forum. And I'm like, is this Oludare yet okay? The guy is sharp-mouthed. His wit is amazing. And he's smart. But he has to. People have to interact with him. People have to connect with him for those things to come out. People can see. Over the weekend, I have a number of kids in the house. It was a house of children. And guess what? Joy that you're seeing here. She is super when it comes to Scrabble. I play Scrabble with her. I play with Eugene. I play with Faith. I play with Elaine. I play with Praise. And I quickly realized Joy and Eugene, they have potential. They have potential to be really good in Scrabble. And then I joke with them. I said, you guys are good. But if I show you or explain to you certain strategies, explain strategies to you, when I play Scrabble with you, I cannot relax. If I play with you, I cannot relax. And then I said, okay, let me tell them. And I explained things to them and faith. And I now wanted to see how they have used it. And guess what? How many times did we play Scrabble that Joy almost beat me? I just beat them consistently only because of some experience. Of course, I kept some strategies in my pocket. But the ones I taught them, Joy used it so well. It was tough. Praise was asking me, he wants to play chess. I really want to play chess. Dad, I want to play chess. I want to play chess. How old is Praise? 13. He wants to play chess. He's a really good time. Then when we played Scrabble and he wasn't doing so well, he said, I'm not a master in Scrabble, but that chess, Initially I was like, when did I play chess last? You don't tell. Maybe in 6 years I may play chess once or twice. I think since I learned chess, I don't think I played chess up to 24 times since I learned it in 1996. I've not played it 24 times. But I have, after learning it, there was no one to play with. It's not my wife's favorite. I have tons and tons and tons of games in the house. And so I started reading books on chess. But it's one thing to read and learn strategies. It's one thing to actually play it and be able to use it. So after almost 4 days of me putting it off, since Praise was like, the way the guy is a master in chess. So, in fact, I used to teach them in school. I used to play with computer. In fact, Faith, so before we play Scrabble, I used to beat computer, I play with computer. I'm like, I would play with this guy. These people so. And then one day I said, okay, yeah, let's play chess. And Praise was eager. Of course, I just cleaned the guy out. Second time I cleaned the guy out. I kept asking, come and let us play chess. No one come with it. And then I was telling him some of the strategies and some things he needs to understand. Not just to know the moves and to know how to checkmate. You have to understand certain things. And sometimes it's when you play with people who know more than you, who are better than you. That is how you improve. And they at least are explaining to you how they are going about doing what they're doing. And when you do that, if I play with any of them, if I play with them for the next 1 year, believe you me, I'll keep beating them. It won't be a problem at all. When we use an hourglass timer, they're struggling to try and play. I can just look at the hourglass, the thing is running, the sun is running, and I can be doing something else. And just before the last 5 seconds, I can drop my tile. And I'll drop 2 tiles and I can get 30, I can get 20. By the time I was playing with Joy yesterday and the next day, I was sweating a little slightly. And then I realized, okay, it's good I kept something back. But of course, the experience of the fact that I know some more words also copy. But that would not have been an advantage because they would not challenge it. See? When I play something, I say, you know, you don't contest because initially I contest. And then by the time the check channel, this is there, they lose count. I contest, the check, this is there. Before you know it, even when I play words that I think especially 2-letter words, and I'm like, I'm not so sure. You guys want to check this? No, I'm not checking. Then you see them saying, Joy, are you checking? Are you contesting? This one, you know, contest now. I don't contest. And I'm like, you need to contest what you don't know so that you can learn from there. My point is, in just explaining a few points to them on certain strategies I learned in Scrabble, they came close to actually beating me. Who knows, maybe by the time we play at the feast, looking at Joy's face, she probably might beat me at camp. My dad. She beats me at camp, next time you don't come to my house, I'll refuse. But my point is, brethren, there is greatness in all of us. And God has brought us together. God wants us to help bring this out. And the only way that can happen is if we notice one another. We reach out to one another. Be given to hospitality. Be willing to actually open ourselves, our homes, our resources to those who have been called with us in the household of faith. The scripture says we should do good to all men, And it says, especially to those who are the household of faith. My last scripture. My last scripture. First Corinthians chapter 13. 1 Corinthians 13. Because to bring out this king in us, we need to be people who have the love of God in us. Because that should be what should drive us. My mom's love for God, His kingdom, I believe it permeates almost everything she does. In some cases when she would say it has made her become, sometimes when she says it's the cause of some of the suffering or some of the troubles she faced in life, I would tell her, well, the scripture says Christ came, He suffered, and laid for us an example that might also suffer in His stead. When we suffer for what is good, then that is good. It's when we suffer for what is wrong, or when we punish for what is wrong, then that is when we should feel bad. But when we're suffering for doing that which is good, or because we love God, before we follow His commands, that shouldn't actually make us upset. We should rejoice like the apostles when we have been flogged for preaching Christ. And they said they are rejoicing that God has counted them worthy to suffer for His Son. 1 Corinthians 13, verses 4 to 7. Each of us should realize, if we do not try to exemplify what this says in us, growing in all of this, we cannot be those who will bring out the king in those around us. We cannot be those who can bring out the king in us that God has put there, and it is in all of us. When I look at the 7 brothers of David, they also were all kingly potentials. I believe they all have greatness in them. I do not know, but I'm just supposing, and so this is not scripture or doctrine. I suppose it may have sort of like weakened their spirit and been rejected by God or by Samuel. In the presence of all those people there, it may have made some of them bitter because we heard nothing about them afterwards. It may have discouraged them, but what if God had chosen one of the others? Do we think they could not have become a king? Sometimes a good word spoken to someone can actually give them strength and courage to face all odds. There's a movie we watch, Indian film, Zokimon. When they use holograms to make an image of a make-believe superhero. Zokimon, right? Zokomon. And the people there who have been oppressed, children who have been oppressed by this man and the other people, they will look at that. It's made of nothing but lights, smokes. So there's nothing real behind it. But because they are of the words and the vision of something that they thought was bigger than them that is behind them, they have courage and strength to stand up to those who are opposing them. So sometimes a word, like the Bible says, fitly spoken, it's like apples of gold in settings of silver. It can actually change people. It can strengthen people. You know, before war, someone will come out and say, man, you know, we are soldiers and we are men and blah blah blah. Or we may not be soldiers, we may be ordinary men. These people come here and think they can take our land. But we will not allow them to take our land. We say no. We are going to fight. And if we fight and we die, then we die as men. And people say yes. Ordinarily, without someone speaking to them, encouraging them, all of them, maybe 1,000 village, I mean, a village of 1,000 people might probably run from 10 people attacking them. But when there is a rallying cry, a word of encouragement spoken to their heart, it brings out the strength in them, encouragement in them. I will watch movies and I will see people carry spears and carry arrows, and they will be running towards their opposing army. And these are young men, and they will carry sword, and they will carry arrows and spears pointing forward, and they will be running. And the arrow, you know, as you are running there, your people coming are either going to shoot or they're going to use arrow. And they know they will die. But obviously, either their king or their commander or someone has spoken a word into their lives that has given them something stronger than their fear. And they're stepping out, and they're willing to go there and just die if they have to. All of us, all of us, all of us, let us strive to be those people who will bring out the King in those around us. Let us be those who will encourage one another to be the King and the people that God wants us to be. And to do that, we need to be having this mind, this kind of love that comes from God in us, driving us, moving with us. And the Spirit of God is the one that gives us. From verse 4, 1 Corinthians 13. Love suffers long. Of course, that means it's enduring and is kind. It does not envy, does not parade itself. There is no paparazzi about it. There is no show off about it. There is no, I want to see this, I want people to see how I am. Nothing like that. There's that humility that has to be there. The next word says it is not puffed up. There is no arrogance. There is no sense of, being uppity. It does not behave rudely. It does not behave rudely. It does not seek its own. It considers others as well. It does not think only of its own needs, its own interest. It considers the interest of others, the convenience of others. It is not provoked. Use the word provoke. The word is it doesn't quickly get angry. It doesn't quickly get irritable. It is patient. It takes time before it boils over. It thinks no evil. Does not rejoice in iniquity, but rejoices in the truth. Bears all things. Believes all things. Hopes all things. Endures all things. Let me read it in the New Living Translation. Love is patient and kind. It's not jealous or boastful or proud or rude. It does not demand its own way. It is not irritable. It keeps no record of being wrong. It does not rejoice about injustice, but rejoices whenever the truth wins. Love never gives up, never loses faith, is always hopeful, endures through every circumstance. So, brethren, as we live this life, as we walk through this life, let us remember that God has called us to fellowship with people in your neighborhood, in your workplace, in the body of Christ, around you. And God hasn't placed us there to put a cocoon of isolation around ourselves. It's just me and me alone, or just me and my household, or just me and my husband, or me and my wife, or just me and my townspeople, or just me and my village people, or just me and my tribe. No, He has called us from every tongue and tribe and nation to be a nation unto Himself. And He wants us to encourage one another, stir up one another, open our hopes, our hearts, our resources to one another, be kindly affectionate to one another, and help to bring out the best, the potential, the King that He has placed in all of us. Shabbat Shalom.